To begin, we will need to chain 6 and then join to form a circle. To begin round 1, you will need to start with a chainless starting double crochet. This can be a tricky stitch, but once you've done it several times, you really get the hang of it. There are several tutorials you can find on YouTube of how to do this stitch, and I definitely recommend it over starting with a chain 2 or a chain 3. Once you've completed this stitch, it counts as your first double crochet of the round. Next, you will double crochet 15 more times into the circle, and you will then have a total of 16 double crochet. Continue around until you have 16 double crochet stitches. To join round 1, you will join normally with a slip stitch to the top loops of the first stitch of the round. And that is the end of round 1. To begin round 2, we will chain 1 and then single crochet into the first stitch. Next, we will single crochet twice into the next stitch. And that is our repeat. Single crochet once into the next stitch, single crochet twice into the next stitch, single crochet once into the next stitch, single crochet twice into the next stitch, and you will repeat that all the way around. Now we are at the end of round 2, and to join, we will join normally with a slip stitch to the top loops of the first stitch of the round. And that is the end of round 2. To begin round 3, we are going to chain 1 and then single crochet into each of the first 2 stitches. Next, we are going to create a front post 2 triple crochet cluster around the second stitch of round 1. So around the second stitch of round 1, we are going to start 2 triple crochet stitches, and once we have them both on our hook, we will create the cluster. And now that we have both of them, we will yarn over, draw through all the loops on our hook, creating our first cluster. Our repeat begins now. What we will do is we will single crochet into each of the next 3 stitches of round 2. We aren't skipping any stitches that are behind the cluster. So we single crochet into each of the next 3 stitches of round 2. We are going to skip one of the stitches of round 1 and create our next cluster around the next one. Remember, this is a front post 2 triple crochet cluster. Yarn over and draw through all the loops on your hook to close your cluster. Again, with our repeat, we will single crochet into each of the next 3 stitches of round 2, not skipping any behind the cluster. We will skip 1 stitch of round 1 and then work our next cluster around the next stitch. Yarn over and draw through all loops on your hook to create your cluster. And you will repeat that around. We are now at the end of round 3. We have completed our last repeat, but we have one more stitch to make, which is a single crochet into the next stitch of round 2. And then we will join normally into the top loops of the first stitch of the round. And that is the end of round 3 with 8 clusters and 24 single crochet stitches. To begin round 4, we will start with a chainless starting double crochet. This counts as our first double crochet of the round. And then we will chain 1. And then this is our repeat. We will double crochet into the next stitch. And then chain 1. We'll repeat that around. Double crochet into the next stitch. Chain 1. Double crochet into the next stitch. Chain 1. And you will keep doing this all the way around until you've worked into every stitch. Now we are at the end of round 4. And to join, we will join normally to the top loops of the first stitch of the round. And that is the end of round 4. We have 32 stitches and 32 spaces. To start round 5, we are going to chain 1 and then single crochet into the first space of the round. Then we are going to front post double crochet around the next stitch. And that is our repeat around. Single crochet into the next space. And then front post double crochet around the next stitch. Single crochet into the next space, front post double crochet around the next stitch. Continue to work that repeat all the way around until you reach the end. We are now at the end of round 5. We will join normally into the top loops of the first stitch of the round with a slip stitch. And that is the end of round 5. We have 32 single crochet and 32 front post double crochet. To begin round 6, we will start with a chainless starting double crochet, which will count as our first stitch of the round, our first double crochet of the round. And we will continue that around. Double crochet into the next stitch, double crochet into each stitch around. We are now at the end of round 6. So we will join normally with a slip stitch to the top loops of the first stitch of the round. And that is the end of round 6 with 64 double crochet stitches. To begin round 7, we are going to back post slip stitch around the first stitch. So slip stitch around the back post of the very first stitch of the round. And then we are going to create a chainless starting double crochet. The combination of those two stitches will create our first back post double crochet. Next, we will back post double crochet around the next stitch, and that is our repeat around. So continue to back post double crochet around each stitch as you go around until you get to the end of the round. We are now at the end of round 7. We will join normally into the top loops of the first stitch of the round. There are 64 back post double crochet stitches in this round. We are now at the beginning of round 8, and we are going to need at least 2 stitch markers for this round. To begin, you will chain 1 and then single crochet into each of the first 5 stitches. Next, we are going to chain 3, and then we are going to half double crochet in the 3rd chain from our hook. So count backwards from your hook and half double crochet into the 3rd chain stitch. Then we are going to skip 1 stitch and single crochet into the very next stitch. And this little section we will need to complete 12 times. And this was our first one, so we will chain 3 to begin our second one. Half double crochet into the third chain from our hook. Skip a stitch, single crochet into the next stitch. And that is the second one. Make sure you complete this around until you have 12 of them. Chain 3, half double crochet into the third chain from your hook, skip a stitch, single crochet into the next stitch, and that makes 3. So complete 12 of those total. Now you should have completed 12 of those little spaces. Next, we are going to remove our hook because we will need to add a stitch marker. The stitch marker is placed around the first single crochet after our first space. So find your first space and then put a stitch marker around that first single crochet after the space. Pick your hook back up and put it on your thread. The next step is to single crochet into each of the next 8 stitches. And this puts us about halfway through the round. So in this section right here, we should have 9 single crochet because we ended with 1 after the space and then we added 8. Now we will chain 3 and half double crochet into the third chain from our hook, just like we did before, creating another little space. Skip a stitch, single crochet into the next stitch. That creates our first little space on this side of the doily. We will need to complete 12 of those on this side as well to mirror the other side. Now that you've made 12 little spaces on this side of the round, we will need to drop our hook and place another stitch marker. And this one's going to go just like the other one did. Find the first space of this side, then put your stitch marker around the first single crochet after the first space. Pick up your hook again. And then you will single crochet into the last 3 stitches. So you should have a total of 9 single crochet stitches across this side, just like on the other side. Join normally into the top 2 loops of the first stitch of the round. And that is the end of round 9. You should have 24 spaces and 40 single crochet and 2 stitch markers in this round. To begin round 9, we are going to chain 1 and then single crochet into the first stitch of the round. Make sure you have 4 stitch markers for this round. Next, we are going to take one of those stitch markers and we are going to mark the stitch we just made. Next, we are going to chain 8. Next, we will single crochet into the next chain 3 space of the round. Make sure you are single crocheting into the chain 3 space and not under the half double crochet. Next, we will chain 3 and then half double crochet into the 3rd chain from our hook. And then single crochet into the next chain 3 space. We will repeat this little space 10 times for a total of 11 little spaces. So we created our first one. Now we will chain 3 and then half double crochet in the 3rd chain from our hook. And then single crochet into the next space. And that makes our second little space. So continue this around until you have 11. And that's actually all you can do, considering you are working between the spaces of the 12 little spaces of the previous round. So once you reach the last space of the previous round, you will have 11 total spaces. We are going to drop our hook. You should have 11 little spaces now on this side. Next, we are going to grab a stitch marker and we are going to mark the first single crochet in the first space around. It's the first single crochet after the big chain 8 space. Next, we'll pick up our hook and grab our thread again. Chain 8. We are going to skip 4 single crochet stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we will work a single crochet into the next one. And now we are halfway through the round. And just like on the other side, we are going to mark this lonely single crochet stitch. So let's chain 8. And then single crochet into the next chain 3 space. We'll go ahead and mark this first single crochet just like we did on the other side, even though we haven't created our spaces yet, just to get it out of the way. We should have 3 stitch markers on each side by now. So to complete the 11 spaces for this side, we're going to start by chaining 3, half double crocheting into the 3rd chain from our hook, and then single crochet into the next space. This creates our first little space. We will do that 10 more times so that we have a total of 11 across. You should have just completed 11 little spaces on this side. To finish the round, we are going to chain 8, and then we are going to join with a slip stitch to the top loops of the first stitch of the round. And I will need to fix my stitch marker because it seems to have wandered away from the stitch. At the end of round 9, you should have 26 single crochet, 4 chain 8 spaces, and 22 chain 3 spaces. To begin round 10, we are going to chain 1 and then single crochet into the first stitch. Next, we are going to single crochet 6 times into the next space. Now we are going to chain 3 and then half double crochet in the 3rd chain from our hook. And then single crochet into the next chain 3 space. The next stitch we are going to do is a front post 2 treble crochet cluster like we did near the beginning of this pattern, and we're going to do it around this marked stitch below, the one with the blue stitch marker. So in order to create this stitch, I'm going to remove the stitch marker to get it out of my way. And now I can work my front post 2 treble crochet cluster around this stitch. Now that we're done with the cluster, we are going to single crochet into the same space where we made our last single crochet. So you're going to have to work behind the cluster you just made in order to reach into that space. Now we are going to chain 3 and then half double crochet into the third chain from our hook. Single crochet into the next chain 3 space. And now we are ready to work our next cluster. The next cluster is going to be worked around the next single crochet of round 8 after the last cluster we made. So yarn over twice, find that next unused single crochet of round 8 and work your front post 2 treble crochet cluster around this stitch. Just like before, you will single crochet into the same space as the last single crochet you made. And we are going to repeat this across until we have 12 chain 3 spaces on this side and 11 clusters on this side. You should now have 11 clusters and 12 spaces across this side. You've just completed your last single crochet into the same space. We're going to chain 3, half double crochet in the third chain from hook, and then we are going to single crochet 6 times in the big chain 8 space. We are now about halfway through with round 10. So next we are going to single crochet into the next stitch, which is the marked single crochet. And then we are going to single crochet 6 times into the next space. So now we are going to chain 3 and then half double crochet into the third chain from our hook, and then single crochet into the next chain 3 space. Now we are going to work our next cluster, and it is around the marked stitch here. We're going to go ahead and remove the marker, get it out of the way, and work a front post 2 treble crochet cluster around that stitch. Now we are going to single crochet into the same space as our last single crochet, and we are going to repeat this little section across. Chain 3, half double crochet into the third chain from our hook, and then single crochet into the next space. You're going to front post 2 treble crochet cluster around the next single crochet of round 8, the one following the previous cluster made. Now we are going to single crochet into the same space as the last single crochet we made. And that completes our second little repeat. And we're going to continue this across until we have 11 clusters and 12 spaces on this side as well. We are at the end of round 10. Next, we are going to chain 3 and then half double crochet to the third chain from our hook, and then single crochet 6 times in the next chain 8 space. These are the last stitches of round 10. Now we are going to join normally into the top loops of the first stitch of the round with a slip stitch. At the end of this round, you should have 70 single crochet, 24 chain 3 spaces, and 22 clusters.